Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. My name is Brandon Baney, joined as always by Logan Green. I'm going to keep the intro short and sweet because, as I'm sure everybody can tell, I'm very sick right now, but the show must go on, Logan. How are you doing?
I'm great, Brandon. Apologize for you, though, if you're not feeling great. I feel like everybody has gotten sick lately, and I feel like right before Thanksgiving I might have had a little thing, but luckily I dodged the brunt of it. So hopefully you get through it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just one of those, like, I sound like I'm a Chainsmoker right now, and because I have no voice, it's all shot. A lot of
Listen
fun.
to that hack. That's awesome.
Yes, no doubt. Okay, well, this is our big girls basketball preview extravaganza / review of what's already happened, because there's this overlap between the seasons where girls basketball actually started 2 weeks ago while football was still finishing up, and I've already said enough about how much I hate that overlap. But all of our girls basketball previews are up on our website, IdahoSports.com. They're right there at the top of the homepage, so you can check those out there. And we'll be using that as a guide as we kind of navigate our way through what's happening so far in the girls basketball landscape. Logan, we'll just go classification by classification. And let's start at the 5A level with the SIC, where really the way it looks based upon the preseason coaches poll is there's kind of a clear top five, and maybe the order that top five finishes in is up for debate. But it all starts at the top with Boise. They're already 2-0 in league play because of the weird SIC schedule, and they're 5-1 overall already. A great start again for veteran coach Kim Bridges and the Boise Brave.
Yeah, they've already, like you said, they've had those two conference games against Middleton, and I believe Bora was the other one, and they've taken both those teams out, and a good start for the Brave. But like you said, it's just, I hate that they overlap like this. It just makes it a little tricky, right? But Boise, they started the season. It's always tough, right, when you start the season against a really good team like they did. They started against Lake City, who coming into last year's 5A tournament was the number 1 seed, but got beat by Boise in the semifinals, right? And so those teams have that rematch on the first game of the season up north in Coeur d'Alene, and Lake City won that one. But a high-scoring affair, 73-62 in that one.
Yeah, and of course they've got Avery Howell as kind of the anchor of the team. She was a returning starter from last year. They have Avery Patrico back, and also Allison Turkey is also a very promising player for Boise High. Of course, we remember the classic game that they had with Timberline, and head coach Andy Jones at Timberline has another really good squad led by Lauren McCall and Allie Cox. Yeah,
so both of those teams are going to be right back in it, right? They played for the state championship last year. It was a 1-point game. I mean, heck, you look at the season standings from a year ago. Timberline 16-0 in the conference, and Boise was right there at 13-3. So, those two are going to go head to head, and like people think, probably those two are the top of the class, right? Of the 5A SIC again.
Definitely. And if you're wondering, when do we get to see Boise Timberline, the rematch? We already did. First of all, they played on November 15th. Boise won that game 44-28. Now, that game didn't count for the conference standings. The one that counts in the league standings comes at the very end of the season on January 24th, a game that could decide potentially the SIC regular season crown. So stay tuned.
Yeah, hey, get the loss out of the way early. But you know what? Bora, right? Bora finished 13-3 last year in the conference, and that was a close game with Boise. Those two played on the 18th, and only a 5-point game there. So watch out for the Lions as well. Throw them into the mix. They're already off to a good start, right? They play Boise very tough. They're going to be a problem as well.
Yeah, Bora is all the way at the bottom of the standings right now at 0-1 because that loss to Boise was a league game, so to speak. Bora has a new coach this year. They're working in a new coach in Ebony Norman. George Rodriguez, the longtime head coach, is not there anymore. And they lost Sid Rodriguez. She transferred to Owyhee as well. So Bora really having to almost start from scratch. So,
and they were picked 12th in the preseason poll, but then they come out and play a 5-point game. I mean, I know a loss is a loss, right? It doesn't matter whether it's by a point or by 20, it goes down the same. But you look at that and you say, man, that team might be a little bit better than next to last. Just on, seeing that and being competitive with Boise. We'll see how that translates out and if they can recover from those losses. It's always tough to lose some key pieces like they have right there.
Yeah, and speaking of Sid Rodriguez, she transfers from Bora to Owyhee. Owyhee was picked 3rd in the preseason coaches poll, second-year program with Coach Jordan Axe, and everybody really high on the Storm this year to take that next step forward.
Yeah, and they just seem like they just keep turning out good teams after good teams, right? Last year was their first year as a school. The boys win the state championship. The girls win softball. The football team just made state this year, and now the girls basketball looking to take their next step, right, and being a little bit better and advancing. And once those players get some more experience that they hadn't had before coming in, the Storm just seem to be good at everything right now, and I'm sure they want to join that conversation.
Definitely. And then you've got 4th and 5th in the preseason poll, Eagle and Rocky Mountain. And that's kind of that top 5 I was talking about: Boise, Timberline, Owyhee, Eagle, and Rocky Mountain. Eagle's got Paige Kofer. She's committed to play at Utah Tech, which is a D1 school. Rocky Mountain has, I'm going to say the name wrong, so bear with me as I attempt to say Cece's name for Rocky Mountain, but Cece Legaspe. I don't know. You're the one that lives over there, Logan.
I feel like it's Legaspe, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Anyway,
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yes, Cece is a phenomenal player for Rocky Mountain as well. What do you make of the Eagle and Rocky?
Well, so Rocky Mountain returns 4 starters, right? And that's big. And it doesn't matter if that, they were great players last year or not or whatever, but having that consistency year after year, it makes a difference. Eagle, of course, coming in good, but you know what? Middleton beat Eagle a couple weeks ago. I know that was a non-conference matchup back on the 15th, but Middleton won that game by 6 points. And so now I think you got to throw them into that mix. Middleton was picked 7th. But where do they fit in this equation too, right? And I think that they're going to make a run for it. They did it in football, right? People kind of counted them out coming in, fresh from the 4A. How are they going to fit in? And so far they've held well. Boise kind of took them behind the woodshed in their matchup, but I think that's going to happen for a lot of people this season. But you know what? Eagle looks good too. Like you said, it always helps to have a great player. Committed to a D1 school. Basketball is a funny game, right? Where you need your team, but you also need that X factor, right? And you look at, let's just take Burley last year at 4A, right? That was a good team, but when you've got Amari Whiting on your team, it's a little different. You look at Boise, they're a good team, but you throw in Avery Howell, it's a different thing, right? When you've got that one player. And so I look at that with Eagle and think they've got that, right? And so they can always make noise on any given night. So, yeah, I think the top 5, I think those top 2 are going to be the top 2. But after that, there could be a couple of different schools that make a noise, make noise for that and try to get into that top 5.
Yeah, if we're tiering this out, Logan, I agree. I think it's Boise, Timberline kind of in a tier of their own. Then I would put Owyhee and Eagle and Rocky kind of in the next tier. And then tier 3, I think, are the next 3 teams in the preseason coaches poll. And that would be Mountain View at 6, Middleton at 7, Capital at 8. Capital has a new coach in Matt Creech. He's coached a long time in the Treasure Valley, comes highly regarded. All of his peers say he's going to turn Capital around and do a phenomenal job with that program. Middleton has a brand new coach in Brad Huter, who had spent 7 or 8 years at Notice. So he's going from 1A up to 5A basketball. But like you said, Middleton already has a couple of good wins under their belt. And then Mountain View also has a new coach, right? Legendary coach, retired at the end of the season. LaCale Pringle is the new coach at Mountain View now.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I think, with Mountain View, right? Last year, they came in highly touted, and then a couple of injuries just really squashed the season. I mean, and I don't think they weren't prepared for that. And that's not a bad thing. That's not what I'm trying to say, that they were unprepared. But they came into the season with X, Y, and Z as their plan, and they lose some of those pieces, right, early. And it's just hard, to go forward with that. And this year, that they've got the pieces back. They know their plan. They can go forward with that, right? And you hope nobody gets hurt this year. And you know what? I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I think last year kind of was just a whirlwind of unfortunate events, so to say, for Mountain View. And I think that they'll recover from that this year and be better. Like you said, I kind of agree with that, with the tiers that you got there, Brandon. And we're going to about hit conference play here pretty soon. The heart of it. And so we're going to see where these teams really stand. There's also some preseason tournaments that some of these teams are going to be playing in and going to get exposure to not only conference teams, but teams from around the state, which I think will help with the state tournament in a couple months as well.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. And then in the last tier, or tier 4, I would say, are the remaining teams. Centennial was picked 9th, CUNA 10th, Meridian 11th, Bora 12th, and then Nampa 13th. Couple of storylines from that bottom group there. Centennial has a new coach, and Kerry Angelos. In our preseason questionnaires, we send it out to every coach. We always ask them, who's a team that could surprise in the conference this year? And Coach Angelo said, us. Come see it. Basically is what she said for Centennial. Nampa making the transition. They've got a veteran coach in Erica Weissenbuehler, but they're moving from 4A to 5A. They were lightly regarded in football. We saw how that worked out. We talked about Bora already. And then CUNA and Meridian are trying to find their footing. But is there a team that stands out to you from that bottom group?
I mean, I would say, I mentioned it, Bora, just because of what they did last year and history. I guess it's nothing. I mean, they played Boise well, right? And they were good. They were a good team last year. They went to state last year. And so I don't think you can I think it's just tough to just throw a team like that at the bottom that has that history, right? That they've been there, done that. I unfortunately for Nampa, I think they're going to struggle. I saw them play a couple times last year, and they kind of struggled even at the 4A level. And unless something has changed there, I think it's going to be a long season for the Bulldogs. But I will eat that crow all day long if that's actually what happens. And they come out and finish first, right? I would love nothing more than that. But I think that it's going to be a struggle for some of those teams at the bottom. But I do think Bora, of any of them, has a chance to finish on top of that bottom 3 tier, or that third tier, and even make a case to get into that second tier as well. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see, how Bora does with basically starting from scratch. Some players to watch from those other teams that are towards the bottom. We talk about CUNA, Brylan Field. She had a great volleyball season. She's also, a great fall sports season. Sorry, I'm a little medicated with my cold medicine, so I can't remember if it was soccer or volleyball. Right. But she's a great athlete for CUNA. Centennial has Netatia, who's a dynamic ball handler. Meridian's got Presley Barger coming back. Bora, we talked about, loses almost everybody, so it'll be interesting to see who steps up for them. I don't know. It'll be an interesting year in the 5A SIC. Once again, let's shift to the 4A SIC, Logan, where really, according to the coaches, it's a clear top 2 in Bishop Kelly and Columbia. And that's really how it's been the past couple of years. Yeah. And I would say that is correct, right? I mean, you look at the past years, it's been Middleton. I mean, Middleton really just ran away with the 4A SIC. They're done, right? They're gone up to 5A. Bishop Kelly and Columbia were right there, neck and neck. Make it, 2 years ago, Columbia made it to state, I think for the first time ever, was it? Maybe, I feel like that was the case 2 years ago for Columbia. But then now Bishop Kelly comes up, they're going to be right there in that mix. They don't have that top dog to fight with anymore. And you know what? I think that
going to be pretty good. You look at what they've done so far this year, just from Bishop Kelly's side, right? They played Timberline in a close game. It's as close as a 11-point loss could be. And it's funny, Addie Heiler, right? She's going to be one of the best players in the conference. And her dad is the radio guy for Bishop Kelly. And he was in the booth with me and Scott during that Bishop Kelly Minico game, trying to tune into the basket because they played Timberline at the same time as that playoff game. And he's trying to broadcast for the radio station for Bishop Kelly. And he's trying to check in on his daughter playing Timberline. So it was kind of funny, but she's going to be one of the best players in the conference and all of 4A. And I think Bishop Kelly as well. You see they played Centennial 75-13. I don't care if Centennial is not that great. That's a heck of a win right there. And they've played some tough teams from the Magic Valley as well and has won those. So I think, like you said, it's probably Bishop Kelly. And then I think Columbia is a little bit. I think Bishop Kelly is number 1, and Columbia is number 2. And there's a gap there, but then there's an even bigger gap when you get further down.
Yeah, so Columbia has the best player in the conference in Miley Mills. She was the 4A SIC Player of the Year last year, so she's back. Mm-hmm. But Bishop Kelly, I think, has a little bit better depth right now over at Columbia. Pretty consistently, the team that everybody else was talking about outside those top 2 was Skyview. They were picked to finish 3rd. Valley View picked to finish 4th. To me, they're pretty equal, 3 and 4, Skyview, Valley View.
Yeah, and we mentioned it. Valley View, doesn't matter the sport, they just are pesky, right? They just claw their way. They're going to be competitive. Nobody's going to roll through Valley View, it seems like. They might not be an undefeated team, but they're not going to get blown out of the building. And they're going to be right there in the mix of it. So, yes, look for those 2, like you mentioned, Brandon, to be right there, maybe the 3 and the 4.
Yeah. Alondra Osuna, great athlete for Valley View. She was a great soccer player. She was the one who scored that soccer goal. Logan, I don't know if you remember this during the fall, but Valley View scored as time expired from 30 yards away. Alondra Osuna was the one who scored the goal for Valley View. It was a crazy game, but yeah, she's awesome for the Falcons. And then you've got Emmett, Caldwell, and Ridgeview. They were all picked to finish at the bottom. Emmett 5, Caldwell 6, Ridgeview 7. I think people are sleeping on Caldwell a little bit. Selena Chavez is a great player. Ashley Green, veteran coach for the Cougars. Can they make a jump into that upper echelon of the league?
See, here's the thing. Caldwell's been there, right? They have been in the state tournament as recently as a couple of years ago, where they were the team to beat, right? They were right there with Middleton. They made trips to the semifinals. And then they kind of lost some players and took a step back. And I think that they're primed to make that next step forward. I don't think Caldwell is going to go 0-22 again this season for sure. And so I think the Cougars maybe have that chance to be a little more competitive than they have been in the past, and step up a little bit and be a little better. I think Emmett is going to be the one that, again, I'm just going off last year, or what I saw last year, right? Emmett was a team that just struggled size-wise, I thought, and they had a hard time when teams were more physical. And so hopefully you see Emmett increase that, right, so that they can be more competitive in those games. But they're also a scrappy team that won some games maybe that they weren't supposed to last year. And you know what? I think that they can also make some noise and be competitive as well.
Yeah, Emmett and Ridgeview both working in new head coaches. Mark Priano is now the 3rd head coach for Emmett in the last 3 years. John Walker becomes the 5th head coach at Ridgeview in the last 7 years. So a lot of coaching turnover at those schools. And right now, the bottom of the league, Ridgeview 1-4, Valley View 0-3, Emmett 0-4. That's the big question. It was a question that cropped up during football as well, is will the league, if they struggle at the bottom, will that pull down the teams at the top in terms of getting seeded by max preps when it's time to go to state? We'll have to wait and see how that develops. Let's talk 3A basketball, where really the last couple of years, Logan, it's kind of been Parma's world in that Snake River Valley Conference. And they're off to a 3-0 start again this year. Homedale is right on their heels at 3-1 as well. This is a league that's, to me, is really hard to predict, because I think Weiser, Fruitland, Homedale, Parma, even McCall Donnelly, all have a chance. This is going to be one of those leagues where I think everybody just kind of beats up on each other throughout the season.
Yeah, and Austin Harris is gone from Parma, right? And I think she was the X factor in the league. Parma had lost some games early on in the season last year, and then turned it on as regular season play started, and Parma just did Parma things, right? And rolling through the conference as they just seem to do every year in and year out. And this year, I mean, if you look at the preseason standings or coaches poll, whatever you say, Parma's picked first, and I think until somebody knocks them off, that you kind of look there, right, and say, well, until somebody can show that it's not Parma, it will be Parma. But like you said, I think the middle of that, Weiser, Fruitland, McCall, Donnelly, and even Homedale, that's just a big melting pot, right? And it could go either way. It's not like, I mean, Parma last year was only what were they? They were like, I think, just 14-12. That's what they were last year. So, I think that it's within reach, especially with Harris gone. I mentioned it earlier with having a key player. I think that Parma had that for a couple years, and they had other players as well for a couple years. And now it's time for somebody else to step up and fill that role that Parma's had for so many years.
And every team has a player that's capable of getting 20 on any given night. When you look at Parma with Riley Calkins, and you look at Fruitland with Abby Rubidoux, we know what kind of scorer she is from soccer season, right? Weiser has Toby Neuer, who might be the best point guard in not just the conference, but 3A basketball. You look at McCall Donnelly with Gabby Green, and even Homedale with JC Parker. They've all got athletes that could go get you 20 points on any given night. So I think this league is going to be really fun to watch. Weiser is a team I think that's going to be really good. Lorraine Harrison, very acclaimed girls basketball coach, took Weiser to state not very long ago. So I think that's going to be a team to keep an eye on in this league as well. Who emerges from this league to go to state, Logan?
I mean, I kind of like Weiser, like you mentioned. I mean, they've got Maddie Schertz back, right? Toby Neuer there. They've got some first team players there. Other teams also returning. Parma returns one from the first team as well in Riley Calkins, but I don't know. I just think that Weiser has maybe it's, that's my guess. I'm throwing a dart on a dartboard, and it landed on Weiser. That's what I'm saying. So I'm ready to eat all the crow when it's not Weiser and they lose every game, but I don't see that happening. I just think that, I don't know. That's my personal opinion, Brandon, that Weiser maybe has the pieces to get it done.
Yeah. This year, 2.5 bids to state from District 3. So I like Weiser and Parma. And then the third spot will be a play-in against the second place team from District 5-6. You're looking at Teton, possibly Sugar Salem, Snake River, American Fall. I think it's going to be hard for 3 teams to get in. East Idaho's got some good teams.
And last year we thought the same thing, right? I think it was it Timberlake, right? Played Weiser at a play-in game, and we kind of were like, oh well, that stinks for Weiser, and they go win it, right? And District 3 took that play-in game and got 3 bids. So you never know, but man, it's a different story. Those people, those teams over there are really good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, one last storyline from the 3A. Fruitland has a new coach. It's a familiar name. Willie Lake, who had been co-coaching the boys basketball team the past several years, is now the girls varsity head coach. So Fruitland's got a great coach to lead an experienced group of players as well. So keep an eye on Fruitland and Coach Willie Lake also. All right, 2A. Western Idaho Conference. This might be the biggest story of the season so far, Logan. And we kind of teased it on last week's Prepcast.
Yeah.
Melba is going like a hot knife through butter to everybody. They're 4-0 overall, 1-0 in conference play thus far. They beat Marsing in their conference opener Saturday, 59-10. They've got wins over Lapway, Columbia, and Grangeville. Those are all teams that are going to be at state. Grangeville will be there for 2A. Lapway, the defending 1A D1 champs, and we've already talked about Columbia and how good they are.
Yeah, and beating Lapway is not a joke, right? Look at the boys' side. They beat 5A teams last year by double digits. Like, it's not like it's, we played a 1A team. No, you didn't. You played, I don't care if it's boys or girls. If you beat Lapwai in basketball, you put it on a trophy. You put it you put it on the wall and say, we beat Lapwai. And they've already done that. And you look at it, and this is the easiest, probably clear-cut one that there is. It's Melba and then somebody else, right, that will be around. But Melba, Brandon, do they lose a game this year? I mean, they're going to play in the Timberline tournament in December, and they're going to play against some big schools. And maybe a loss comes somewhere in there. I believe it was Cole Valley, right, that last year played in this tournament and did pretty well and made a name for themselves. Were competitive in some games. And I would love to see how Melba is going to stack up when they get into that tournament. Like, how are they going to compete? Because to be honest, I don't see anybody else really pushing them. That's my thought. Just from what we've seen so far this year, I think they're going to take it. They look really good.
Yeah, Cole Valley last year went to the Timberline and lost all 3 games, but they played Burley, Bonneville, and Bishop Kelly. They lost to BK by 8, Bonneville by 1, Burley by only 14. So I think even though they lost all 3, the fact that they were competitive and pushed those much larger schools was really what told the story there. Cole Valley is, of course, the defending 2A champions, but to me, it's clear they're at least a step behind Melba here in the early going. Just going off of like common opponents, right? We talked about Melba and their win over Lapwai 52-44. Cole Valley similarly played Lapwai to start the season off, and they lost that game 62-35. So you like looking at the common opponents a lot, Logan. So that kind of tells you where Cole Valley Christian is. They do bring back Hadley Frost. Trinity Holsinger is a young player that's getting a lot of buzz for Cole Valley. But when you look at Melba and they're rolling out Kendall Clark and Kaylee Wilson and Hallie Arnold and Brooklyn Daly. And I mean, they're just, I don't know how you stop Melba this year. Like
they're all coming back. That's the scary thing, right? Like those players are all back. and you know what, you look at it and what they did last year. They had some of those great games with Cole Valley Christian. We were there for the district championship game against them as well. It was at Cole Valley. And man, you never know what can happen. Those two, Cole Valley is different, right? We look, and I do it all the time. I look at the common opponents, right, and say, hey, you know what? You played this team and lost by this much, and you played this team and won by this much. And we try to make as much correlation with that as possible, even though it's not truly a true representation of what's going to happen, right? Because at the end of the day, I think Cole Valley and Melba know each other so well. And they do. They play, they play in the off season together. They compete in other sports, and those two teams know each other. And at the end of the day, when those teams play, it's going to be closer than losing by 20 to Lapwai versus beating Lapwai by 12 or whatever it was. It's 30-point difference. And I don't think that Melba is going to roll over Cole Valley. I think it'll be close when those two play, just because of that history. And you know what? They want it. They want to beat each other. And Cole Valley is going to come out tough. So anyway, that's my thought on how that's going to go. I think Melba comes away with it, but Cole Valley is going to make a run as well. 2 veteran coaches, Dave Lenz for Melba, Matt Beglinger for Cole Valley Christian, 2 of the best around. 2.5 bids available to state from this district as well. The team that all the coaches told me to keep an eye on, and this is the team that was picked 3rd in the preseason coaches poll, is Ambrose. Kelly Barber is back to coach the team. He's also the athletic director at Ambrose. We know he's a great coach. Ellie Thorne was an all-conference player last year as a freshman. She's now a sophomore, and she has really elevated her game. So keep an eye on Ambrose. And then 4th and 5th, Nampa Christian and New Plymouth. They each have new coaches, Logan. Randy Brothers previously coached the Nampa Christian boys a few years back. He's now the girls coach at Nampa Christian, and New Plymouth has a new head coach in Mackenzie Radford. She took over midway through the season last year at Middleton as Middleton's interim coach, guided the Vikings, I thought, pretty well given a somewhat hairy situation.
And now she is now for the first time in charge of her own program at New Plymouth. I thought that was a slam dunk hire for the Pilgrims.
Yeah, and I think she's going to do great there. And New Plymouth is a school that has been to state recently. And gosh, what's her name? Alyssa Christensen, I believe, was the one that was there. And she was at CSI and then just got a D1 offer. I can't remember who it was. I think maybe it was Boise State. Gave her an offer out of being at CSI. So, I mean, they've got tradition, right? New Plymouth does, of putting out good girls basketball teams. I mean, some of their other alumni we don't really talk about much, but I'm just kidding. That's a joke. The boss is from New Plymouth. So anyways, but that's a good spot to be in. I think it's a great hire. She has that experience. Middleton, I thought Middleton looked good last year after the coaching change. Not that they didn't look good before, but I feel like they were a little more, they pushed Burley more than I thought they would have early in the season. I'll say that. In the tournament when they met with Burley, they ended up winning the consolation, I believe, went through that and won. So she's got experience not only in regular season, but in postseason at the 4A level. And I think that's going to translate well. And I don't think you can discredit that, whether or not New Plymouth has, key pieces back or, those all conference players. Are they going to take out Melba? Probably not. But are they going to, maybe make some noise? Because I think, even with Coal Valley losing 4 of their, senior starters from a year ago, they're still going to be competitive. But I feel like that second spot is up for grabs to some extent. And I think that, it could be anybody's that wants it. So we'll just see. We'll just see how it shakes out, right?
Yeah. Marcin was picked to finish 6th. They have Emily Vanisdahl, a great player. Mike Swanson is the head coach. He's been there a long time. And then you've got Compass Charter picked to finish tied for 7th with North Star Charter. As far as I can tell, North Star Charter is playing mostly a JV schedule with a couple of varsity conference games sprinkled in. I don't think they'll count in the standings, and they'll just go into districts as the 8th seed automatically. But North Star Charter, of course, made the move up from 1A D1 to 2A. They're trying to, acclimate to the 2A level. Compass Charter is going to give it a go. They've got a new head coach in Adam Mastalski. Adam Mastalski. He's been great to talk to and interact with so far. And Compass Charter is off to a 2-1 start. So Aviators, look out.
Yeah, look out. You never know. And that's the thing. You never know, right? Got to play it out on the court.
Definitely. All right, let's move to 1A D1. This gauntlet of a conference, this 10-team monolithic Western Idaho conference. This is always the toughest one to predict for me because there's so many teams, there's so many variables, and generally speaking, a lot of these schools are tight-lipped about what's going on at their schools. So it's a hard one to get a read on, even during the season, I feel like sometimes. But Rimrock was picked as the preseason favorite in the preseason coaches poll. I think that's a testament to what the Raiders have done over the past several years. They've developed a very good program.
Yeah, I mean, they've been at state year in and year out. They won 2 state championships a couple of years ago. Well, I guess I should say 18-ish years ago, but they always seem to be there. It doesn't matter who Coach Jewett has there, that she's going to turn out a winning team. Last year they were 15-8. And you know what? Notice was there last year. Liberty Charter has always been an issue as well in that, but a lot of people like the Raiders coming into it this year. So far on the season, they do have 2 big wins, right? They played Hagerman and Glens Ferry and really just run those 2 out of the building. And so a good start, a fast start already for Rimrock. And they're one of those ones that you just don't hear a lot about what's coming out of Bruno until the state tournament rolls around. You just see that, another win for Rimrock. So we'll see how the Raiders turn it out this year.
Yeah, Kyla Jewett in her 6th year at Rimrock has done a fantastic job. You'll remember, Logan, very famously that Rimrock missed out on state last year. They were knocked off by Liberty Charter in the semifinals on a last-second bucket from like the right block. Liberty Charter scored with basically like 1 second to play to defeat Rimrock by 1. And that was the kind of the controversy last year, was there was no way to go backdoor and challenge for that second spot to state. It wasn't a true double elimination tournament. It was just, oh, you lost? Sorry.
Right.
So Rimrock never had a chance to challenge back and earn their way. So Liberty Charter and Notice got to state last year. So we'll see if Rimrock can get revenge there. Liberty Charter was picked to finish second in the conference. Coach McCain, Brad McCain, has a good group coming back. Jennabelle Reese kind of leads the way. We got to see Liberty Charter at state last year, Logan. And so Jennabelle Reese was a young player, and now she's kind of expected to lead this new group of Patriots.
Yeah, and they had a couple of young players on that squad, and that's just not what the rest of the conference wants, is for Liberty Charter to have good younger players, because they just always have good players. It seems like, Madison Hodnett gone last year, didn't matter. They still make it to state. And so I think that, they're just going to continue to get better, those younger players for Liberty Charter. So far this year, Liberty Charter does have a victory over Nampa Christian and Glens Ferry. They lost to Lighthouse Christian, and they did lose to Nampa Christian. So a couple of losses so far, but a couple wins as well for the Patriots on the season.
Wilder picked to finish third. They're led by Kimberly Arias. She's a great player. Greenleaf Friends fourth in the preseason coaches poll. Shay Olson, dynamic athlete, might be the most talented pure scorer in the conference. She can go get a bucket whenever you need her to. And then Notice picked to finish fifth. Lexi Kudabach is the one returning starter for Notice, and they've got a new head coach. As we mentioned, Brad Huter, their longtime coach, is now at Middleton. So Drew Williams takes over the Notice program, the 3-4-5 there. I kind of like Greenleaf the best out of that group of three.
Yeah, Brandon, I was going to say Greenleaf has wins already this season over Garden Valley and then over Ambrose, right? That we were just talking about, that people liked Ambrose coming in and, at the 2A level. And I think Greenleaf is going to be a problem. And that maybe they can contend for that second spot. Of course, we won't know till they get into conference play, like where these teams stand, but I think Greenleaf has a good opportunity to fight for that second spot and maybe even contend with Rimrock for the first.
Yeah, I really like the potential of the Grizzlies. The bottom half of the preseason coaches poll, Victory Charter picked 6th, Idaho City 7th, Vision Charter 8th, Gem State 9, Riverstone 10. Idaho City could be a sleeper. Natalie Luthi is a great athlete for the Wildcats. Is there a sleeper that you like from this bottom 5, Logan?
I mean, like you said, it's funny. It's just weird to see Riverstone at the bottom, right? They were so good for a couple of years, made it to state a couple of years ago, and it's just strange to just see them at the bottom. Victory Charter also seems to always put out a good team, right? And Victory Charter seems to play their way into the mix on the boys side, especially, right? They're a very good boys program, and so sometimes that can translate over, like winning breeds winning on the other side too. And you know what? So I would look for maybe Riverstone to maybe not be on the bottom, that maybe they can take a step up, and then look for a Victory Charter to maybe try to notch their way into the next level.
Yeah, and Victory's got a great coach in Mandy Frank, and they've got a couple of Zinks on the team. Kimberly Zink, second team all-conference selection last year, and then Michaela Zink, younger Zink, is also a player to keep an eye on for Victory Charter. So that's the 1A D1. And then we'll wrap up with the 1A D2, the Long Pin Conference, where Tri-Valley won it all 2 years ago. It was their first, they double dipped. They won the volleyball and girls basketball championships, and then that really talented senior class graduated. Last year, Council got to the championship and fell to Rockland. And so when you look at the preseason coaches poll, no surprise that it's Council 1 and Tri-Valley 2. Those are kind of the two preeminent programs.
Yeah, and the Council, they did lose Sydney Nichols from last year, but man, they have a lot of pieces back, Brandon. They've got Hope Zolman, Iveson, Epic, and Michaela Hart back. It's just very tough to see that. It's just tough to not see that working, where somebody else is going to step up, right? We talked about that with when you lose a player in like Nichols, who is going to step up, right? And there's going to be some new players that come on to the squad, right, that are going to look to help out. And it doesn't hurt when you have Paula Tucker as your head coach.
Great coach. And Jeff Springer, the head coach at Tri-Valley, they're going to build around Manon Tyler. She was a key player off the bench as a sophomore 2 years ago when Tri-Valley won the state championship. She's now a senior, and they're really counting on her to lead this team. So is it Council with the best record so far at 1-0? Yes. Tri-Valley's also 1-0, but all of a sudden here's Cascade, and they're 2-1. Cascade was picked to finish 4th in the preseason coaches poll. Garden Valley was picked 3rd, but Cascade is a real dynamic player in Kyler Nitzel. Every coach we talked to said, look out for Kyler Nitzel. She's a fantastic player for Cascade.
Yeah, Cascade with wins over North Star and St. John Bosco to start the year. They lost to Wilder, and so maybe if we go back a level, maybe that says more about Wilder, that Wilder will be in that upper echelon of the 1A D1. But yeah, Cascade, I mean, the boys program made a run to the state championship 3-4 years ago. They made it to state last year, and they're just another program when it comes to basketball that Cascade just, you just can't not talk about them being involved in some degree. And so watch out for the girls program there. I mean, picked to finish 4th, but so far a good start to the season, right, for the Ramblers.
Yeah, Garden Valley was picked to finish 3rd. Katie Wentz finally graduated. We talked about how she was one of those players that felt like she was there for 10 years. No more Katie Wentz. Now it's Caitlin Thompson leading the way for Garden Valley. And then for Salmon River, coached by Paula Tucker's son, Levi Tucker. You just hope they can get through the season. Last year, they started the year off promisingly enough. Injuries kind of caught up to them to the point where they didn't have enough to field a full team the rest of the way, and they had to shut it down. So we're hoping that Salmon River can get through a full season and start there.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 or 3 years ago. There was an article on Idaho Sports. It was about Salmon River specifically, how they had 6 girls on the volleyball team that all just moved over and played basketball, and they had those 6, right? And that was it for them. And it's always been a problem for them where they just, you hope that they can turn out the players, because when they had those 6 were great, right? They played good competitive games against the teams that they went up against. And you just hope that for Salmon River that they can have those athletes this year and that they can finish the season out and play a full one out.
Yeah. And from what I can gather, Salmon River is kind of doing a co-op with Meadows Valley for girls basketball, and Salmon River, their gym, their gym isn't available to play in. I don't know if it's undergoing renovations or whatnot. So they're actually playing all of their games at New Meadows anyways.
Okay.
The boys will have separate teams. Salmon River and New Meadows had enough to do their own for boys, but it's kind of a co-op for girls, but they're still competing under the Salmon River name, I believe, even though the games will be at Meadows Valley. So
gotcha.
Clear as mud.
That's it. Yeah. Clear as mud. Well, that'll be interesting. Maybe that'll help, right? Just having some extra bodies, an extra pool to pull from, right? To have those extra people in there that can help the team at least go, right? I don't know if they're going to win a championship or anything like that, but at least to play a full season. I played my school teams that I competed on in high school were terrible, horrendous, very bad. But we just wanted to play. We didn't care. And you know what? So I've been in that. I have not been on the top. I have been on bad teams, and we just wanted to be there, and we just wanted to play. We know what was going to happen. So I guess I can come from that perspective of knowing that might have been rough, but I did not want to have a game canceled. I did not want to lose. We just wanted to play. Didn't matter how it was going to go. We just wanted to play. So I can empathize with that. And hopefully they can turn out and have a great season, a full season, I'll say, for that Salmon River, Meadows Valley co-op between those two.
Yeah. Girls basketball season off and running. All of our previews are on the homepage, IdahoSports.com. All the preseason conference polls are there as well. We've got all the girls basketball scores and schedules in as well, so keep checking back to IdahoSports.com. Boys basketball previews are being put in as we speak. We're working on some dynamic wrestling coverage as well. That'll come in over the next 2 weeks. So next week, Logan, I think we probably shift and do kind of a boys basketball wrestling combo preview, and then we'll kind of be into the flow of winter sports finally.
Right. And you know what? And I think you're doing are you doing a wrestling separate thing or?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So this is exciting stuff. We are going to be bringing to you for the first time a brand new Prepcast. It is going to be called Matt Chat on IdahoSports.com. It's going to be the Matt Chat Prepcast every week. We're going to talk just wrestling. We are going to have, I'll be the host. I'm kind of a novice when it comes to wrestling info, so I'm really just going to lean on our experts. We've got Al Fontes, who's a great writer for us. Jacob Eck, who is joining our wrestling coverage. We will have more guests throughout the year, and we're going to do this every Tuesday night at 8 Mountain, 7 Pacific. We're going to do it live because I feel like the wrestling diehards will show up and interact.
Oh, you're doing
us.
it live, huh?
Yes.
Oh, look out. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, Brandon. I saw some comments on social media, places out there saying, whatever, people didn't cover wrestling. And I'm like, right here, we got wrestling. Brandon, you've done an awesome job with that. And the Al Fontes, what he writes, I mean, who else is writing these great? And they're really good articles on the wrestling community. And so if anybody's still with us here, just check that out. If you're in the wrestling community or, know somebody that is, be sure should be fun. And I think that I will go on record and say, I don't know if anybody has wrestling covered like Idaho Sports does.
Yeah. So what will we have on the site during the season? We will have rankings every week, team rankings, the top 5 by classification. And then we will do a top 5 regardless of classification. So it's like 5A all the way down to 1A. We'll rank them how we think. And then, of course, we'll rank the top 5 girls teams in the state as well. And then we're also bringing back the individual rankings. Every week we're going to have, the 98-pound weight class. How do the rankings stack out? So we're going to have those individual rankings back every week as well. It's going to be so much fun this winter on IdahoSports.com. So yeah, stay tuned for all that exciting wrestling coverage. Okay. I'm going to go lie down for a little bit, see if I could shake this cough I've got. Logan, stay safe, stay healthy. All right.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning into the Treasure Valley Prepcast, everybody. We'll see you back here next time on IdahoSports.com.